people knew they knew this was fresh, and they knew it was ours, and nothing before mattered, and Pure was like leading the way, and people were like, right, this is what we're doing, and it didn't matter who you were welcome. And basically everyone who was into music or going out, or any kind of drug enthusiast, suddenly was attracted to this new thing. And that was Pure, man. It was just everyone going, right, because we just discovered it, and we knew what we were doing. So, we knew the tunes, and we knew what to do.
Thanks for tuning in to the Apter Party podcast. My guest on today's episode is not only a DJ, but he's also an author, and he goes by the name of DJ Dribbler. He's also currently known as For Mankind, and at the moment I'm reading one of his books, which is called Harry's Kebabs. I'm really enjoying reading it, and I really enjoyed chatting to him on today's show. So I hope you enjoy listening to it. If you do, please give us a like and subscribe, because you'll help us grow the platform. And please also check out the episode sponsors, Paradisa. They're a cool Edinburgh-based clothing brand. I'll provide a link to their website in the episode description in the show notes. Thanks and enjoy. All good. So, how you doing?
Hello. Very well, thank you.
Good.
Thank you for having me.
Good to have you. Good to have you. Good to finally meet you.
Yeah.
We were obviously chatting a wee bit there off camera, chatting about loads of stuff that I want to chat to you about today.
Yeah.
But you were telling me that you've just came for a gig at SWG3.
Yes.
And
mini manoeuvres.
Manoeuvres.
I've been doing it for a while. Sarah that runs it, and Rita. And it's for the kids, and yeah, it's one of my favourite gigs, man. People say it's not being cliched. It's got a great vibe with the kids, because they don't care about the DJ, so they don't face you, and it's completely different. So they're just spinning about and jumping around. They've got about 6 bubble machines and massive balloons and whatnot. So they've got giant unicorns dancing and things like that. So it's really good fun. I've been doing it for a while.
Wicked. You just arrived in Glasgow last night.
I got it last night.
Nice one.
Yeah,
nice.
Yeah.
Where are you from originally?
From Aberdeen.
You're from Aberdeen?
Ellen, in fact, a bit further north, but that's where I'm from, man.
Nice.
Yeah. I left there in the late 80s. Well, after school, went down to Edinburgh, and it wasn't long before house music took over down there, and that was like 1987, 88.
What age were you? Then?
17, 18.
17.
Just left school.
Yeah.
Just before drinking age.
What was life like growing up in Aberdeen up until that point? Like, it
was good. I mean, we were the best football team in Europe when I was growing up. With Alex Ferguson, it was very football based. My upbringing in Aberdeen, it was good, because it was kind of pretty much ahead of the pack. A lot of the Aberdeen fashion wise and culturally, adept and kind of leading the way. So, but it led to a kind of attitude that was kind of, everything south of Stonehaven was rubbish. Like everybody in Edinburgh had AIDS, and everybody in Glasgow ate out the buckets. And it was like that. But obviously, as soon as I went down to Edinburgh, I was like, oh, this is brilliant.
Yeah.
Right? And it was 24 hours, and my pals were at university and whatnot. So I left Aberdeen then, and I've not been back.
What was the choice at the time for moving to Edinburgh? Did you just?
It was just my mates were living there.
Right.
They'd moved in there to go to university.
Right.
And most of the people that did Pure, they were all from my school.
Yeah.
Predominantly from Gordon's,
Really?
Robert Gordon's in Aberdeen. Yeah.
The guys that started Pure were all from Aberdeen. They all went to school in Aberdeen.
Well, me and Brainstorm, Andrew Watson we were at school together.
Right.
And then. Like I said, there was about maybe 10 folk through the school went down to Edinburgh University, and they were good crack, and my mates. So like I was just going down to visit them, because I'd kind of messed it up. I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I was stuck for getting it there. I just wanted to get it, and I knew that I would do it myself, whatever it was.
Yeah.
So I just went down to Edinburgh and like dossed about with them, and I was just like the drinking and going outside of it when they were in fact studying as well. And then I managed to get into college in Edinburgh, and that lasted about 2 weeks before I started like telling the DJ and the union that he was rubbish, to the point that he went, right, do you think you could do better? And I said aye, and then it let me on there and then, and that was me started DJing.
That's wicked.
I got the gig at my college as a student union DJ, and they gave me 50 quid a week for records. So I went straight in and bought Acid Man by Jolly Roger, Fool's Gold by Stone Roses, some other stuff. That was all just acid and house music and club stuff, and I just turned the student union into a house music party on a Wednesday night, and stopped going to the classes really, and just kept doing, and the DJing just took off, and I was just too into it to do anything else, you know. Like that was I knew that was my vocation, and well, I'd take the rough times, whatever came my way with it, because I knew that's what I was going to do.
That's wicked.
Yeah.
Was that in 1987 that you started DJing then?
No, it was well after that. It was 1987, 88. It was selling like Public Enemy and
right.
Style Council kind of stuff. Like, you know, like there was a lot of psychobilly stuff going on as well, like Meteors and things like that. But yeah, I was into hip hop and reggae, heavily into reggae. But the house music, when it started, I just, because you would get like 20 minutes of it in a disco, they'd pump up the volume, would come on and jack your body, like. And I remember saying to my friend Rachel, you know, I really like that house stuff, that, you know, like. But at the time it was way back in the 80s, remember. So there was a thing about it being gay. It was this gay music from America, and I said to my friend Rachel, "Will you dance with me?" When the house comes on? She's like, I like the house stuff too. I'm like, when that comes on, because you get like wee 20-minute bursts, 25 minutes, and I'd say, will you dance with me so I don't look gay? You know, which is terrible, terrible. Yeah. You know, but it was just the way it was at the time, and I apologise if that's coming across badly.
Yeah.
But I remember that was the way it was, and when we were going down to the north of England, started travelling down there to go to Hacienda and places like this where the music was. It was 2.5 hours on the bus. And I remember thinking, you know, we better take some different music. You know, we can't listen to house music for 2.5 hours. Yeah. You know, there's no way we'll listen to solid for 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
You know, now I'm standing doing 6-hour sets.
Yeah.
You know, 3 times a week. You know, like. But I remember thinking that's how fresh it was, and I remember thinking that, like, you know, surely we can't listen. We better take some reggae. We better take some hip hop. But no, we didn't. Obviously, we just listened to house music the whole way there and back. And, yeah.
And at that time, was that the norm in the clubs, like even like the Hacienda and stuff? Would it be, would you get like 20-30 minutes of house?
No, Hacienda was full on. I was like 89 by then.
Right.
We were going there. I mean, no, at this 87, 88, there were acid clubs. And there was a club called Acid in Edinburgh that just played acid music. I think it was the guys for Avalanche that did it. And it was brilliant, you know, like for just all out. Going, Edinburgh did an amazing scene, like in the late 80s with the City Cafe, with the gay thing, with post-punk, new romantic. Steve Strange was living in Edinburgh. The Thunderballs, these amazing big parties, and they were playing house. You know, and we started Pure, there was Sativa. Joe Malik did a brilliant club, graffiti club. I can't remember the name of it, but it was down the bottom of Broughton Street, and it was a proper good club.
I've met Joe Malik before. I'm sure he's from Leith.
He lives in Edinburgh.
Yeah.
He's Edinburgh. I think he's Glasgow. He's a Celtic supporter.
Right.
So, but that's Joe. But he was doing a brilliant club. Edinburgh had amazing clubs up until about 95, when this disco thing kind of took over, and these dudes come in and started playing Saddle Up and Ride Your Fucking Pony and shit like that, and Neil Diamond and crap, and it was all just pissed up people having a riot, and of course it was mobbed. So then the clubs started getting elbowed out in favour of, because they were dwindling, the numbers were kind of dwindling, I guess, as well, like the initial massive charge of it. And people were deciding to go separate ways with it, like, oh, I'm into this kind of techno, or I'm into that, and that's soft, you know, I'm not into that. And there was all these divisions started happening. This is better than that, and I'm into that, and no into that. And then there was the people who were like original true to the thing, and it just kind of it dissipated, whereas there was a united strength for so long, and everyone into the same shit. But then the cheesy clubs took over, and then that's when Glasgow came into its own club-wise. Because, you know, Glasgow just took off then, like mid to late 90s, as a world dominant centre of amazing crowds and people that really knew the score. You never meet somebody from Glasgow who's got bad taste in music,
Yeah.
you know, and generally they know the score. It doesn't matter if you're a bum or a brain surgeon.
Yeah.
Everyone talks on the level in this city, and there's no room for, you know, you can't get ahead of yourself. You can't forget yourself because you'll get pulled straight back in Glasgow.
Yeah.
More so than you will in Edinburgh or Aberdeen. I find, or in many places. I mean, New York's like that, and I think it comes from respecting your city and representing it.
Yeah.
So yeah, in that time, that's Glasgow, just everything cooking, you know, and it just went nuts in the mid-90s. The club land just took off, and it's still going really strong.
Yeah, the scene here is still amazing.
It's been that way
today.
for 20, 30 years,
yeah.
man. It's just fantastic city.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I want to ask you about Pure, because you mentioned
yeah.
Pure there, and that was something I wanted to ask you about.
Pure, yeah.
So first, like, obviously your friends started that party. You were saying your friends that you were at high school
Keith
with.
from Optimal, Twitch, and Brainstorm, Watty. Mate Watty.
Right. Okay. Did you go to school with Keith as well?
No, but Keith was in Edinburgh.
Right.
But
yeah,
Keith was he went doing a thing in Glasgow University in the GU.
Right.
And playing industrial music, acid house music. They were the first they were playing that, and then they started a night called UFO. Him and Brainstorm. Which was run by Rock and Ewan, who ran Pure. So UFO was a Friday night, which was quite heavy, quite hardcore, like strobe light, smoke, industrial music, Front 242, a lot of Tackhead kind of things I remember, but also Happy Mondays and things like that getting played. But it was dark and intense as I remember it, and I didn't really like it that much. It wasn't a very house. It was more edgy and dark. But then there was a big fucking fight, or like one week. I don't know how it came. There's a few stories behind that one. A few schools of thought how that came about. But anyway, the Pure UFO was shut with this riot that happened, and within a week we'd reopened it. They'd reopened it with a membership scheme and called it Pure, and that's how Pure started. So.
And you went on. You then ended up.
I started DJing in Pure, in the cooler, because they asked me to. I guess they needed another DJ, and I was really into it, you know, like so. And what Brainstorm had taught me how to DJ.
Right.
So yeah, it was just a matter of time really before I started getting in about it. But then initially I was just standing at the front of the stage and getting everybody to go mental.
Yeah.
Crowd control, you know, like, like an MC with the mic and things like that. But it was just proper good, you know, like.
It's got a reputation as being like, it's got a bit of legendary status the night, right?
Oh, absolutely, it does.
What was it like? Well, it
was just mad, you know. Like, it was it's hard to describe. There's a video on Instagram on Quadrant Park, going off with Bizarre Inc., and it's like that. It was like that, like absolute unity, complete mission, like purpose. People knew they knew this was fresh, and they knew it was ours, and nothing before mattered. And Pure was like leading the way, and people were like, right, you know, this is what we're doing, and it didn't matter who you were welcome. And basically everyone who was into music or going out, or, you know, any kind of drug enthusiast, suddenly was attracted to this new thing. And that was Pure, man. It was just everyone going, right, what the fuck? Because we just discovered it, and we knew what we were doing. So, you know, we knew the tunes, and we knew what to do. So we just kind of schooled anyone that didn't know. Automatically they got it. So people were turning up in Stranglers t-shirts and bullet belts one week, and then walking in a pair of dungarees and pink kickers the next. You know, like there was and nobody batted an eyelid about that. It was cool. You're into it now, cool, brilliant. Everyone was welcome.
That's fun.
But Pure was just intense, like sweat box. Dark rave, like you don't see anywhere like that now.
No,
really.
What venue would it take place?
It was in the venue. It was called the venue.
It was at the venue. Yeah,
Carlton Road. Yeah.
How many people we talking?
I think it was 400 or something like that. But I mean, Pure was down to, when I left Pure in '98, it was down to about 80 people a week going.
Really?
You know, there was a club called Disco Inferno on the Saturday. Like I say, it was a disco thing, and it was packed out.
Yeah.
And they were kind of covering it. I was still doing events in Glasgow and the Arches and the Barrowlands and whatnot. But it went to bi-weekly eventually, and just the whole thing in Edinburgh just kind of fizzled out, man.
Yeah. That's a shame. That's a real shame. I've heard...
It's the way it goes, man. They've had a long... 10 years is a long time. You know, like in club circles, you know, like in Edinburgh had it good for 10 years. Like Glasgow's fucking ridiculous. Like if you look like Dom and Harry, you know, like they've been doing that every Saturday night since fucking the resurrection.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's nuts.
Totally.
And that's testament to how amazing it is, you know, as well.
Definitely.
The people running it, the people doing it, just know this. They know exactly what they're doing, you know, and that's what that is.
That's it. I've spoke about Harry and Dom on the podcast a couple of times. Like, got so much respect for those guys. They are actually two of my favourite DJs. If you're saying to me,
so
you know,
totally.
If you want, who do you want to go and see on a Saturday night? Go and see Harry and Dom. Absolutely.
Yeah,
you know,
you can't go wrong there.
And proper nice guys as well. You know, I've had the chance to meet them a few times and stuff. But they're good crack. So how did
you hear a bad word out of me?
Nah. So how did you then end up going on to become the tour DJ for Orbital, and what was that like?
As I remember it, it was I was really like before I started DJing, I went to see Orbital in the first tour in Aberdeen. And there weren't many people there. There were people there, but there weren't many people that were into Orbital. But I was blown away, man. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I think the tune Belfast didn't have a name yet at that point, and then they went over to Belfast after it and met David Holmes, and he named the tune Belfast. And I had a kazoo that I used to take to the raves, and I'd watch them. And at the end of the show, I was so blown away. I went up there and I was like, look, I'm going to get into DJing, you know, and that, what you just did is inspired. Like, I was like, that's, you know, it's really, maybe I'm going to get into this. Here, take this kazoo. And I handed it to Paul Hartnell, and he took it and he sucked. He thought it was a pipe. He thought it was a hash pipe inside. And I was like, it's a kazoo, man. Do you call yourself a musician?
What? Sorry, you know? What is that? It's
that
right, okay.
thing, you know?
Yeah.
So I gave it to them. I said, look, yous are going to be massive. You know, like, take this and put it in your first video. Yeah. You know, because yous are going all the way, man. And long story short, it was about a year later, and we started Pure, and we booked Orbital. As the second week, I think it was, Orbital played. Really close to the start of Pure. And they came and they were like, did you see it? And I was like, what, see what? And I'd forgotten about this kazoo. And they were like, have you seen this thing? Have you got the 12 in Belfast? And I'm like, I've got it downstairs in the cooler, yeah. Well, we got it. You're like, go and get it. So I went and got it, and they've got a postage size picture of my kazoo on the back of the 12. And they were like, we held up the release for 2 weeks for that. And I'm like, you're joking, right? So then they were like, yeah, you were telling us you were into DJing, it's great that you're doing this and that. And I'm like, yeah, great, wicked. So blah, 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 on and went. And then it was like 3-4 years later, we'd been doing things with the Shaman. The Shaman had been doing Synergy with Meat Beat Manifesto, Orbital, I think a Homeboy, a Hippie, and a Funky Dread as well. Various people. Orbital were part of that, and then Will Sinnott died in Tenerife, and Orbital kind of picked up the mantle of continuing the touring thing with DJs who were from the scene, like promoting and kind of nurturing a ravey thing, but in the clubs, inside clubs. The Orbital thing came about through that. Like after many years, they were going on a tour in 94, I think it was, 94, 95. And they said, right, we need a tour DJ. And I think they'd asked Keith and Watty. And they said, no, we can't go for 2 weeks because we've got to do Pure. But Russ can do it, I think. and they were like, oh, Russ, right, cool, you know, because we know Russ for, back then. Yeah. And so they were like, that's totally cool. So that's how I ended up doing that.
That's amazing, man. That's amazing.
Very, very natural and organic. Not, they could have picked who they wanted. You know, they were a big ass band. Yeah. And we were playing massive stadiums, like 6,000-7,000 people in Stockholm and places like that. And but it was totally cool. you know, like, because it was effortless, all that stuff.
What was the experience like? Would you then warm up the crowd before
warm up before and after the band, basically, you know, like as they're coming in, and then if they're a warm-up act, so I'd do it as you're coming in, then we'd have a warm-up act, and then I'd do a little bit, and then the band would come on, and then I'd play after. And that would be Paris, Brussels, Amsterdam, Copenhagen, Oslo, Stockholm, Munich, Hamburg, Berlin, generally in the North European tour, and then down the south was Barcelona, Marseille, Milan, Turin, these places down around the Mediterranean basin. So yeah, I mean, Orbital. I spoke to Phil last week. You know, I'm very passionate about Orbital and everything they've done for me.
That is wicked.
They've done, that was massive, getting asked to play for Orbital.
And
getting asked to play for Pure and then being asked to play for Orbital was certainly the biggest thing that had ever happened to me. And I did mature a lot in that. Like, I realised that you couldn't drink for 2 weeks straight on a tour.
Yeah.
You were fucked if you did. Did
you give it a good kick at the ball?
I did, yeah. People found out the hard way, like, people were there paying a lot of money to see you. You know what I mean? And you had to screw the nut. You couldn't take the piss. I realised that. And it took me a long time. I'm sober now. I stopped drinking 6.5 years ago. And it's changed me dramatically. But, I was definitely a total fanny at points before that with the bevy,
What was the decision behind deciding to go sober?
With the bevy?
With the bevy, yeah.
It was just being an arsehole, like just being a drunk. I'm a unique individual character, like people can like me or not, but I'm definitely I've got an individuality. It's the same as everyone does, and that's changed when I was drunk. You just become a generic fucking drunk, and you make silly decisions and you say daft things, and they stick with you, man. It doesn't matter how many gold medals you've won, or you shag one sheep. And that's you, mate. So it's like that was that with the bevy with me, and I just thought, I don't want to be that anymore, man. I just want. So I did a couple of bashes at it, and you feel great when you stop drinking, but then you start again, and then excuse me. So one time I just didn't start again.
Yeah,
you just keep going like that, and then you get into it, and I haven't found it. But I don't miss it.
No, good
not
for
in
you.
The slightest, man. Not in the slightest. Yeah.
I go through phases of saying that's me. I'm off it and I stay off it for like 2-3 months or something, and then
you're cool.
It's all right, but then something will kind of happen.
Non-alcoholic saviours.
That's it. Yeah, well, I love the taste of beer. I love the taste of it. So that has been a godsend, to be honest with you.
I still drink 10 beers a day.
Yeah,
especially in the heat in Ibiza.
Totally. So I read online that you actually then went on to live in New York. Obviously, we were talking about New York a wee bit off camera, but you also lived in Tokyo and Dominican Republic. So, what then happened? How did the story go from you then becoming, you were touring with Orbital, and that sounded like an absolutely amazing experience?
Pure stopped. Pure left Pure in '98, and then it was a couple of years, like about a year of fannying about and. Well, not fannying about. Started doing a place called Yang in the city centre. Brought the Orb, brought Rocket, ambient soul, did good hip hop, freak manoeuvres. Were doing the hip hop in there. I started doing PR for them and booking and whatnot. So that was cool because I knew a lot of folk for Pure, and I could get guests and whatnot. And then I'd been in New York in 1989. And I'd been out to Mars, the club Mars, and in the village down at Nels and these places, even though I was well underage. I decided that I'd been inside every New Year in a sweaty place, dark place, fruit market or whatever, and I didn't want to do that for the millennium. So I went over to New York, and I went to Body and Soul on the Sunday. And within about 20 minutes of being there, I realised that I was lost in a desert. I was just getting drunk and playing everything that came out that week on the record shop walls. I was going to Vienna, I had residencies in Dublin, London, playing in Vienna a lot. Edinburgh and Glasgow, obviously. And people were just telling me I was brilliant, you know, like, well, some of them. And then, but I realised I was just going through the motions, really. And like, I heard this lot, immediately I just went, oh, for fuck's sake, like, so this is it.
Yeah.
You know, like, and if I'm serious about it, I need to come to this every week. I'm just fannying a bit.
Yeah.
So I just went back and I packed everything in. I
Wow.
just jacked everything, and I went to New York. My friend was Terry. She was staying there over in the Millennium, so I thought, right, I'll go there for the Millennium. That's perfect, and I did. And you know, within, you know, I DJ'd on the Monday night, and with a friend of mine who Jerry B, who was for Easter House, who was over there running a place called Jaffa Cafe, and he was like, yeah, you could come and DJ with these dudes on Monday night in East Village. So I did, and the guy for the bar came up to me at the end of it and he went, that was brilliant, mate, like, you know, can you are you here, are you going to be here next Monday? Here's $200. And I was like, fuck, cheers. Like, no, I'm going back. And I was like, Pau, would you give me $200 next Monday? And he's like, yeah. He goes, my brother's got a bar. He needs a place on Wednesday. And I was like, what, do I get 200 for that as well? And he goes, yeah, 250. And I'm like, he goes, I'm sorry about it. Maybe you'll get a percentage of the bar. And I'm like, wait a minute. So, you know, like, I've got $400. I could go home, or I've got $400 here. And the rent was $460. And I thought, right, I've not even done anything, and I've got almost my rent in 2 nights. And I was like, right, I'm fucking moving to New York. So I did. I just moved back, jacked everything and moved back. Within about a month, I was making about $800 a week DJing, you know, and my rent was $400, and I was just making a lot of money.
Yeah,
it doesn't sound like that much money to some people, maybe, but
back then as well,
back
right?
then it's probably still about the same.
Yeah.
You know, like the you get paid. But it was yeah. I mean, the rent prices in New York were vastly different from what they are now.
Yeah.
And we were staying in Williamsburg before it got. Well, maybe we were responsible for it being gentrified, to be honest.
Yeah.
But, it was affordable, you know, and it was just amazing. Like, everything was happening. As soon as you left the door, everyone's hustling, and everyone's up for helping you hustle. So if you say you're a DJ, they're like, oh, you should go DJ, you should do this, you should do that, you should meet this guy, you should meet that girl, you know, like, do this and come and meet I've got a cousin and I've got this, that, and everyone's up for helping you out. So, you know, it's really, and they're like, I'm a photographer, I don't give a shit, you know, like, nobody's trying to hustle you like that.
Yeah,
you know, your clout in New York is what you can do for people. That's how you've got clout there. Yeah,
that is wicked, man. That sounds like such an adventure. Like, what was?
It's an amazing city. It was house music. You know, like I just realised that was my thing. You know, like, I'd been fucking about with acid, 2-step, garage, reggae, hip hop. You know, like, again, because the house got a bit samey. Like, you say that, but it's just the stuff we were playing in the mid-90s, and the hip hop was phenomenal then. So, you know, I started playing a lot of that. But when I went to New York, I realised that no, it's just house music, soulful house music on amazing sound systems by absolute masters. And I was able to do those bar gigs, get the money from them at bar hours, like open, you know, 10 till 4 a.m. And then there's a thriving after hours scene as well in New York at the time. I was able then to go to these clubs like Shelter and Body and Soul, which had obtuse times, 8 in the morning, 3 in the afternoon on a Sunday. You know, no bar, so like no pissheads, nobody out on the pool. People seriously into it, like very as serious as I've ever seen. People in tears. You know, I guess maybe like Northern Soul was. You know, with that level of passion and dedication to it. So yeah, that's New York. It was just house music, and I just, for the next 10 years, I devoted my adult life to house music.
That's amazing.
Basically, you know, but there was really, like, it's educating, because you're still practicing your craft by DJing in the bars.
Yeah.
But you're going to hear these people like Francois Kevorkian and Timmy Regisford, who are real masters, like real, it's, you know, different level completely, and the response they're getting from their crowds who know them and trust them implicitly, so they don't have to work it. They they get away with. So they'll, you know, oftentimes you'll hear the same record played multiple times in a night. Things like that would be unforgivable in other places. Like, they would be the reason that you were shit.
Yeah.
You know, but there it's that's the DJ where the dance is.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing. It is.
A bit like, obviously we mentioned Harry and Dom, they've been doing like every Saturday. Are those guys, you know, in New York, is that the case? Are they every Sunday or is it?
Well, at 11 o'clock on a Saturday, the shelter started and it went till 3 in the afternoon and it was just Timmy. So he was doing a 15-hour set.
Wow.
You know, like, but the first 8 hours of that till 8 in the morning, like I say, they'd be like for the Bridge and Tunnel mob who were coming in for Jersey and whatnot, and it would be playing George Michael and things like that, which it sounded incredible.
Yeah.
Like when you hear Everything She Wants on the Shelter sound system, it's, you know, it's hard to describe. It's so psychedelic, and you know, you don't need any influences because the sound itself it takes you there.
Yeah.
And people will find sweet spots on the dance floor and just sit down for hours in the Shelter. But then if the dance floor's clean, like the subby is filthy.
Yeah,
you know, like if you spin on your head in the subby, you're going to get a disease. Like, so but there's people spinning all over on the Shelter on the heads.
Yeah,
you know, there's people pirouetting. There's Broadway dancers. People go to dance.
Wow.
Whereas people down there, they're getting drunk and partying, you know, and that's good. That's cool. It's great for DJing to that because it's enthusiastic and real, but it's more. It's you know, it's not like that. It's more refined and maybe got more panache in New York. You know, it's not about
it's different vibe.
People aren't that off their tits.
No,
you know, people are kind of straight, man. There's a lot of people smoking weed.
Really?
Yeah, there's a lot of weed. But
I find
you don't see people like you do here. I see people on pills and whatnot, and you can see it in their faces. You don't really see that.
I think it's the drinking culture here as well. Like,
absolutely,
I think the mixture of that. If you are doing stuff like that,
it's the bevy,
it's the bevy, isn't it?
Without New York, it would have been a hard push to ever stop drinking. You know, I think it was seeing that and just having been open to that kind of, you know, people looking at you in that way, like you know, what a fucking mess, man. You know, like here at school to be like that. It's look at the state of that. You know,
it's almost like, encouraged sometimes, isn't it? It's almost
encouraged.
Like,
it's regarded as funny and it's good banter and that, but really it's terrible. It's disgusting and awful, horrible, disgusting behaviour, right? And it's generic and shit, and it's not funny.
Totally.
And it's really toxic and dangerous and bad. Causes all that. But I'm not getting into that. You can drink if you want, man. I don't care.
No,
you know,
for sure.
I'm not here to preach sobriety.
No, totally.
No,
I mean,
at all.
everything in moderation, eh? Like, you know,
absolutely. I mean, it's just bevy. You know, I just don't drink. That's all it is, and that's the reasons. And I look much better naked. You know, like, it's at the end of the day. You know, you know, and I'm very happy with that.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's a big difference between, you know, being able to have like a few sociable drinks and getting to that level that you were talking about, where you're falling about the place. It's never,
just pissed, man. But it's you're DJing and it's free.
Yeah.
You know, and you're not really that drunk. You know, but then you do get that. It's just that, like I say, it's that one moment.
Yeah.
It's that one statement.
Yeah.
You know,
totally.
that one act.
Totally.
You know that.
Yeah. I used to drink at all my gigs. I rarely drink at them now, but I used to think it was like walking a tight rope between you're having a few to loosen you up and enjoy yourself, but it's a tight rope between a few to loosen you up and dropping crosstown traffic in the middle of a house set. You
decide that I shot the sheriff's going to be brilliant. You know, like, and it's because you're pissed. Like, and it's always 3 hours into the set, and it's always, you know, it's a good idea to play Ace of Spades. You know, like, and it's not. It's a terrible idea. You know, like.
Well, I mean, there's some people, like if I watch Optimal and I saw them play like Ace of Spades,
they're good at it. You know, but I think they're probably still pissed. But no. It's not in that. I'm not talking about that. Like they go, Optimal do that thing where they're doing that.
They do it well.
They're playing alternative music. But I would be playing house music and decide that, you know, playing The Clash was a good idea in the middle of a perfectly good, acceptable house set in Amsterdam, you know, on a Saturday night. And I mean, it might work, still, but it's that rushes of blood.
For sure.
That you don't get. There's more composure in sobriety. And my DJing's night and day better.
For
night
sure.
Day, man. Yeah.
So Williamsburg, is that in Brooklyn?
It is.
So you were saying that over the course of time that's kind of got gentrified, but when you first when you first lived there, like was it a bit more edgy? Was it?
There was bullet holes in my doorway. I didn't know what bullet holes were, but my pal from Postle came over and went, they're bullet holes. And there was four of them above my door. And I was living on the street that Eddie Murphy moves to and coming to America.
Oh, wow.
South 5th and Hooper. And,
Wow.
I was burnt out cars and that, you know, and it was Brooklyn, you know, like, so, but then there was I knew the graffiti writers and I was familiar with them. I didn't know them personally, but I was familiar with them. And when I got there, I started seeing their names just going up that day, and I knew that this person had been on my block, and that kind of thing just got me about New York. But like I say, I think we were the first like non-Puerto Rican, non-Hasidic people to move on to South 5th Street. And there was a guy called Cav that was living down the street. He was from Tottenham. And he was living in the flat that I think Eddie Murphy moved into. And where they steal all his clothes, where they look out the window and the street are wearing robes and that, because they've come to America and they steal all his clothes. They leave them out in the car or something and they rob it. That was Williamsburg. But then, like, there was a thing after we went through 9/11 there, which I'm not going to talk about, but after 9/11, there was a 6-month period where there was no work, there was no DJ work, because every time we tried doing it, but every time you put on a track, it just took on a lateral meaning, man, and people would be crying and stuff, and it was just upsetting, you know, vocals took on a whole new thing, and my Jewish Hasidic landlord called Mr. Sofer, he just come up to us, me and Johan that were living together, and he's like, look, I know yous are DJs and I know yous are fucked, so you don't have to pay me rent.
Really?
And we just went, what? And he's like, no, you know, cool. My neighbour had been killed in the towers, and you know, we were connected on the street. There was a connection to it on our block. So we saw this as a kind of solidarity move, you know, that there was really sound to the guy, and we were fucked, and we had been living there for 2 years. So we didn't pay rent for 6 months. Wow. And then at 6 months, after 6 months, there was suddenly this eviction notice on our door, and I was like, fuck's this, like, he's evicting us. And it was like, you can't stay, you haven't paid your rent for 6 months. I'm like, I know, you told us not to pay it. He says, I know I told you not to pay it. I didn't want you to pay it. He says, no, I'm evicting you. And I says, but you've had 6 months rent free.
I'm
like, all right, well, I don't know a minute, like, you can't, you know, like, and he goes, right, so popped this out, right, long story short. Moved in the next day, because we walked down the block the following week. He put in a new wall. So he's built another bedroom in the flat. Right? Our rent was $800 a month, right? Rent's now 16 or 1800 a month overnight, right? And the dude was getting a first month, a last month, and a deposit. Right? Which added up to being 400 quid more than 6 months of rent for us. So in one day he made all that, and I just remember thinking, that dude's a player, man, and I respect that. That dude, we got 6 months free rent. We're then stuck in it now, and we're, you know, that. But he played that, and
gotta respect the hustle.
You do. I was just going to say that exactly. The good hustle is what everyone benefits. You know, like, so there's no one person coming out better, like, but everyone gets a taste. You know, and that was 6 months free rent, and at a time that we really needed it, you know, because we didn't have work. So that was how. But then, like, that showed you overnight. Then all the rent. Then it was like 3,200 that flat, because I know somebody went to see it about a year later. So then Williamsburg just went ridiculous. They started building hotels, and now it doesn't look anything like what it did when I lived there.
So how did you then end up living in Tokyo? And
I moved to Tokyo. I went Bell again after 9/11. No work. Bell and Sebastian got in touch. They were playing, still doing the Orbital were the first band to play as well in New York and Roseland, and they called me and they said, "Do you think we should do it?" And I was like, "Well, no." You know, like, everyone's. And then I said, "Do you know something? Like, I don't see why not. Like, fuck it, you know, like." So they came, I think it was October the 20th, and the Yankees were in the World Series, and everything kind of picked up in New York, but there was still the dust falling and all that. It was only happened about a month previous.
The dust from the towers?
Yeah, it was falling till like mid-November, mid-December.
Wow, I never knew that.
It was awful. And then, because you could write your name in the windows. So I remember my birthday's November, and somebody wrote "Happy Birthday" in the dust. On the window, "Happy Birthday, Russ," in the dust on 9th Street, that was. So it's well up from Ground Zero.
Wow.
But anyway, I don't really like talking about that.
No, for sure, right.
The Bells said, "Look, we're coming. Do you want to throw an after? Do you want to do an after show party? Charge $5 or whatever?" And I said, "Aye, brilliant." You know, so they were a big band. I got CBGBs. And I threw an after show party, and then the tour management or whatever, I had a friend Spoon, and she knew this guy Grassy Knoll, who was tour managing Super Furry Animals, tour managing Fila Brasilia, a number of other people, and they all started coming to New York and said, "I'll do after shows for you," and I got cool venues for them to throw the after shows in, and I charged $5, so I had this thing going, and then the Bells went to Tokyo, and I knew a guy in LA from Tokyo. And we'd done the LAs, and we'd done San Francisco, and we'd done Oakland and various places on the West Coast with after shows with the Bells. And Shin, my friend, said, I was like, well, they're going to Tokyo. You know, can we do Tokyo? Aye, we could do Tokyo. The Bells cleared it. Shin went over. He's like, right, I've got a venue to this, to that. Tokyo is just fucking mental, you know, like they're fanatical. So, you know, I put it on the website in Japanese. We're going to be an after show party, but you need to have your name down here to get in. I had 300 people that day. It was 30 quid in. Got from the show to the after show, and they were all waiting in an orderly line, 300 of them. I put my hand out and had $9,000. And it took 10 minutes, and I didn't have to outlay a penny. I did it all online, and it didn't cost me a thing. My flight there, and I just went, right, can we do this next month? And they said, yeah, you go. And I went, right. So it's Chris and Bobby, I think, or Richard and Bobby, I think it was. I can't remember, but there's a few of them DJ, and I said, do you want to do this next month? I'll pay you $2,000, whatever it was. Yeah, cool. Okay, brilliant. So I'm back in New York and packed it in again and moved to Tokyo. And when I get back, because Japanese say yes to you and they don't mean it. They just say yes. And I got there and they didn't. I couldn't do it.
Oh, you're joking.
But I thought, right, I'm going to make $9,000 a month, man. I'll get a dog, and when the dog dies, I'll leave. That was my plan for Tokyo. So I got there and they were like, no, you can't do this. Don't be ridiculous. And I was like, all right, fuck.
So that was that.
Like, what am I going to do? So I stayed for 7 months. I ended up doing 2 parties. I made enough of them to carry me for 7 months. But then Tokyo, I'd come from New York to Tokyo, and it was like going from like London to like a hamlet in Orkney. You know, like there was just no street activity. Not everyone was tight-assed and just shit, man. You couldn't go out on the street and get what you wanted. You couldn't ask people for stuff. There was no key. You didn't get the key to the cabinet at all, man. They were just guarded and shit.
So different culturally, I would imagine. Totally different,
man. It was. I found it really racist and shit. I hated it. Hated Tokyo. But then I was drunk.
Right,
you know, and I was struggling, and you know, I'd done really well, and they knew what could happen, and they weren't letting it happen, and there was just a lot of red tape and bullshit. Whereas in New York, everyone was hustling, and it was easy. I knew what I was doing, and everyone could do very well out of it. But in Tokyo, there was a million reasons why we couldn't.
Was there much of a scene there at the time? Like,
it was a scene, but like I say, you know, I mean, you get life imprisonment for, you know, certain things. You know, like you can't, like clubbing's different. Like even smoking a bit of weed or anything like that is, you know, hard labor. You know, and you just get scooped off the street. You don't get letters or nothing. You just disappear.
Wow.
So it's totally different. I mean, the clubs are fucking magic. You know, like they've got amazing sound systems and all of that. But there's not that. Every site is different. You know, like London's everyone's fucked. Like in Glasgow, everyone's smiling and having a riot. In London, everyone's kind of a bit darker and maybe a bit older, looking a bit old for this kind of thing, you know, like. And New York's clean and pristine, and everyone's healthy because they're all like they've been dancing since 1978. You know, like you know, fit as fuck and. So it's different in every city, but Tokyo's, I mean, I'd love to go back now. I got asked to go back and DJ, but it's about 1,200 quid to fly there just now one way, and that it's just not affordable. But I'd love to go back there now I'm sober, and check it out. You know,
where was it you got asked to DJ? Which club or bar?
There was I can't remember what they were called. There was some places in Ueno. I can't remember, man. It was in Shibuya. I did 2 in Shibuya. Where the crossing is. Let me think. I was at Air Club Air.
Yeah.
With Funk Devoid with Lars.
Right. Cool. Cool.
But I wasn't DJing there.
Yeah.
I remember going to that though.
Yeah.
And I was invited to Yellow as well, and that was one of my biggest regrets because it was my birthday, and again I was pissed, and I was out with about 20 people, and we only had 4 people again on the guest list, and I should have just told all them to bolt.
Yeah.
But I was like, I've got to stay with my pals, like it's my round, you know, like giving it that way you are, you know, unite. I didn't want to leave them.
Yeah.
But of course, within half an hour of me doing that, they'd all went home, and I was one of my biggest regrets. I think it was Kenny Shee and Jeff Mills at Yellow.
Yeah.
Or Womb.
Yeah,
it was Yellow.
Wom's the most famous one, right? Wom's the one that...
Womb and Yellow,
Yeah.
I think it was Yellow, but I can't mind exactly. Like I say, I'm not really sure.
No.
But I was really drunk in Tokyo.
Yeah. And you're living in Ibiza.
Right.
When did you move to Ibiza?
About 7 years ago now.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I've been going there for years.
When did you first go?
I didn't. I went really late, like 2010 or something, because I just thought it was rubbish, like, you know, and I was right. You know, like the clubs were rubbish. Like like I say, going to Shelter and going to Body and Soul, you're spoiled. You know, like, but I was getting told that Space was the best club in the world, and I went there and it was shit. You know, this is stupid, man. People are idiots, and the music's crap. So that was my first night there, and I was Green Velvet, who we did a lot of times at Pure. And I remember just standing there, I was getting barged by people wanting to go to the toilet and just like folk off their tits. And I was standing there. And my experience was the Shelter for 10 years, like every Saturday night. And I just went, like, this is rubbish, you know, like, went back to my pal's house. Woke up the next day and he's like, well, we'll go to the beach, we'll jump off a cliff. And I went, this beach, man. And I was just like, then we went in water. And I was like, oh, mate.
Yeah.
Like, and then it's just these vibes and energies. And then we went to see the sunset somewhere. And I just remember getting, like, you know, when you get in a hot bath, like you get this kind of rush, like, and I remember getting these feelings, like watching the sunset. And I just went, no, I'm not a hippie. Like, I know I look like a hippie, but I'm not. And I know I can't stand hippies. You know, like hippies, in my experience, are like, folk for Easter House that'll break your arm over a 15 quid crystals deal. You know, they're drug dealers. They're not hippies. You know what I mean? Like, they don't have hippie principles. Like, and I can't be arsed with them. I hate hippies. But anyway, I was like that. There's no denying what I just felt. You know, like, there's something primal in that.
Yeah,
you know, like,
yeah.
so I was like, wait a minute, Ibiza.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Yeah.
You know, like, so then when someone... hang the clubs, man. Like, let's go to we'll go and get a paella. Let's go here and swim.
Yeah.
Let's go. Everybody's naked.
Yeah.
You know, and you're like, wait a minute, man. This place is fucking brilliant. No, not because everybody's naked, but just the attitude and the vibe and everything.
The vibe.
And then it was just like, you know, there was pockets of decent music, you know, and there was good DJs living there, but they were tended to be playing elsewhere. And then lockdown happened, and all the tech house and all that rubbish. There was nowhere for them to do it.
Yeah.
And suddenly it was 6 feet apart. You had to sit down. You weren't allowed to dance. Balearic music. It was perfect for it, right? And so all these amazing DJs like Phil Cooper, Phil Mason, a lot of Phils. But then, you know, Ibiza-based DJs as well, who, you know, Andy Wilson on Sonica, and, you know, they had these things going on that suddenly people were coming over there and playing these Balearic sets, and the music just got incredible. And it stayed that way. So that even though the tech house and stuff are back, they've got their own crowds, man, and we're doing our thing and they're doing theirs, and the two don't meet.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of room for everyone and plenty of business for the clubs. So Ibiza's now amazing in that you can choose to do whatever you want. You can go out, you can chill, you can hear good music, shit music. You know, obviously you wouldn't choose that, but you know what I'm saying. Like there's a big club thing that you can do if you so choose, or there's a daytime thing, there's a poolside thing, there's a villa thing. There's all these different things. There's free entry bars, you know, that have got decent DJs, good DJs. Nightmares and Wax will play, and you know, and things that just really amazing. And you're meeting people every day as well in Ibiza that are coming in to play, and it's just a central hub for DJing and producing. And
totally, I love Nightmares on Wax. Wicked.
George lives there.
Yeah,
but it's a very familiar place. You know, everyone's kind of knows each other, and there's no. Nobody plays you to get stuff. There's no mind games.
No.
Like, people aren't, like, you know, like, you'd imagine that George would get a lot of people looking to use him as a step up, or like seeing him as a doorway to whatever they want to be or imagine they want to be. Whereas, you know, George has just had his head down since day one, you know, since he was a teenager, going to the States to get records and bringing them back and then making incredible, you know, life-changing tunes.
Yeah, his stuff's wicked.
And now his DJing's insane.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
It's, and there's so many more, you know, people just as good, you know, that are there. But it's consistent and it's proper, and you can trust it, you know. So you go to George's nights, you're gonna rock out.
Yeah,
you know,
Wax the Jam, is that his?
Yeah, that was
night.
his. Yeah, that was his, and I think it might still be called that.
Yeah,
I'll need to ask him.
Can I
open this one?
Of course, yeah, of course. Here you go. I've got a bottle opener there. Here you go. Cheers. No worries at all. I actually lived there seasonally for 4 years.
Oh, right,
when I was in my early 20s. Like,
okay,
so 2011 was the first summer that I done there.
Been there,
loved it. Best time of my life. Best time of my life, man. You know, like, and what you're talking about with the energy and stuff. Like, people say, like, oh, that's hippie nonsense or whatever. There is something about the energy.
Mate.
There is.
You know, it's primal, I think. Or there's a word that begins with T. But there's something in there that hits you and you go, holy shit.
Yeah.
Like, when the sun goes down on the horizons, if you catch it right, I like to think of it, and you can feel this force coming out of your chest almost like, and it's like a draining. And what it's doing is, like, the sun is taking all your problems and all your shit from that day, and it's wrapped it up and it's taking it down over the hill and it's burying it. It's like having a bath at the end of the day, getting washed, right, and then pulling out the plug hole and watching all your dirt going down the sink, like, and you're clean.
That's
and that's what it's like, man. You got the sun takes your problems, and then it's night. Then it's nighttime. So it's been day. It just sounds ridiculous.
No.
But it's like, obviously.
Yeah.
But
you said you're not into happy stuff.
I know what I mean. I'm sure anyone that's been to Ibiza.
No, totally.
Suddenly it's a refreshing, renewing thing, you know, like there's a day and then there's a night.
Yeah.
Ibiza is very polar. So things are either great, generally they're great, but when they go bad, it's really bad. And you get intense, like, thoughts, and you get, you know, you overthink massively, and everything's exaggerated. Anything you do, in fact, is exaggerated.
Yeah.
Your hair grows quicker, as you can see, you know, everything's like more, but one or the other. It's black and white. It's night or day. It's good or it's bad. There's no middle ground. And when it is bad, suddenly it'll be good again, and you won't have to climb the stairs to good. It'll just be amazing again.
Yeah.
The mechanic will love your car or something like that, and it'll cost you $2,000 getting to your gigs, because they'll say it's 4 days and it takes 8 weeks, and you're phoning your pals in the IRA to get a bump, and you know, you're thinking, you know, you're like, and you're going fucking mental, you know, like, and then you're gonna kill this guy, you know, and then you get the car back and you're like, fuck it, you know, let's go to the beach, jump off a cliff.
Everything is better going to the beach, right? Like, I used to.
That's a good option to have.
Oh, totally, man. Like, I mean, I was young when I was there, and you know, I was always there, like, with flatmates, other guys, and we would just boot the arse out there, you know, as you do.
Yeah.
When you're that age, you know, we were out 5, 6 nights a week, and if I was doing that here, I'd be miserable. But there, you just wake up
again,
and you go to the beach and jump in the sea.
The energy and the salt. The salt is ionic atmosphere.
Yeah.
With all the saline in the water, you know, like it's a healing place. There's the earth is clay. It's basically a rock with 7 foot of earth on it.
Yeah.
So it's just massively magnetic and super strong energy. Like, I broke my leg, and the doctor said to me, there's no better place for a bone to heal, because, like, when you can stand stones, you see people standing stones one on top of the other at the beach. That's ions that are holding them together, the glue. And he said it's the same for bones, man. Ibiza's got such a strong ionic atmosphere that your bones will heal better.
Wow.
So, you know, another reason why we moved, that's why, in fact, me and my girlfriend at the time moved there, was because the doctor said, And I was fucked living in Brixton. And they'd push you out the way to get on the tube in Brixton. You know, like my leg wasn't getting any better there.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's why we moved, in fact.
Wow, that's amazing.
Doctor's orders, aye.
That's really cool. I read a book about the history of the island, really interesting history. It was called The White Island, the book that I read. But it went way back to like the Phoenicians discovering it and stuff.
It's the fourth oldest city in Europe. Fourth oldest town in Europe. 600 BC. When the Phoenicians were expelled, and they were all the gays and the party people and that got expelled. And they got on the boat, and the first place they landed was was Ibiza, and the goddess of Ibiza is Tanit. Who's the goddess of frivolous fun and dancing and music. So it's crazy. Like it's all there.
Totally,
and it's been there for thousands of years.
You see like images of Tanit and stuff some places, and down at Atlantis there's like a little secret sort of bit. Like memorial towards her or something, right?
And Tanit tests you. You know, Tanit's for real. Like it's a feminine thing as well. But she puts things your way and tests you in Ibiza, and you can tell the people who are going to make it or not. The pretenders don't make it. You know, the people who are real and bringing it and contributing, they make it. And then you can collaborate, that's fine. But the people who come there looking for it, I call them the barnacles on the boat. Because like we've been steering this boat for years now, and some people just latch onto the side of it. You know, they don't jump in the boat and help you steer and paddle or whatever. They don't, you know, clean the floor or whatever it is. You know, like some people I'd say the barnacles on the side of the boat. And
the hangers on.
They don't last. In Ibiza, you see them all the time, but it's like, can you do this? Can I get that? Can I do it? And then you're like, nah. And you don't say nothing. You just
distance yourself.
Just go off in silence, you know. Like, but that's how it is.
That's a good analogy of it. Good analogy of it.
Tanit's for real, man. All that stuff's for real.
What's it like living there in the winter? Because I was always leaving in October.
It's just really chilled out. I write books, so you know I've been dead. Right, you know, good for writing. And there's still enough places open that you can DJ. I mean, I tend to go to back here and DJ and get money. Amsterdam, London.
Nice.
You know, but because you don't necessarily get paid that much in Ibiza, but because you DJ in Ibiza, you get paid more elsewhere. Especially with Pikes. So, you know, people want Pikes after, and they want Pikes on the flyer. They don't really necessarily want me. They just want Pikes. So I'll take it.
I'm slightly conscious of time because I know that you need to catch your training a little bit. So I want it.
Right.
I think we've got about five minutes left. I want to ask you about Pikes, but I want to ask you about your books as well, because I'm reading one of your books at the moment.
Harry's Kebabs.
I'm reading Harry's Kebabs. Before we talk about Harry's Kebabs, maybe you could just quickly tell us what makes Pikes so special. You're a resident.
Pikes.
You're a resident at Pikes now.
Yeah, I am. Yeah, I've been resident for a few years. What makes Pikes so special is you don't know who you're sitting next to, but the people make Pikes. They say that here, don't they? But I didn't mean that. But it's unique individuals who are very interesting. So I'll just give a quick example. Met a guy on the terrace. You know, hello, what's your name? John. Where are you from? Miami. What'd you do? I'm an astronaut. You know, like you meet folk that are bizarre. Like you're an astronaut. You know, like what? And he's like, what? I said to him, I've met a lot of space cadets in my time, but you're the only real one. You know, so the thing about Pikes, the best DJs, who go there and give it their. You know, it's a unique place. So if you're playing there, it's not like just turning up with a set that you've played everywhere else. The Pikes is bigger than all the DJs who play there collectively and individually. So when you come there, you turn on you do a set for Pikes. So there's a lot of pressure probably for some people. But then once you start playing there, it's really friendly and fun, and you enjoy it. And if the DJ, it's really high standard of DJing, really high standard of clientele, and they make it 27 and over and things like that. But really, it's just, I mean, I shouldn't say this, but really, it's just to put off fannies. You know, like if you're cool, you can turn up at any age. Just if you're sophisticated enough and you get the score. Nobody's trying to sell you stuff. There's nobody coming up to you. There's nobody looking for it. It's really grown ass masked,
Yeah.
and proper. It's like a wee world, Pikes.
Yeah. Feels kind of like you're in a house party as well, rather than a full-on club, right?
It is. I mean, you see, it's people coming every year. You know, like you see the same faces coming back, and people like no matter where you go, like Ibiza's like that. You can go on holiday somewhere else, you still want to go for a week there.
Yeah,
you know, get to scratch that itch, whatever.
Totally.
It is. So people are coming the beginning of the season, the end of the season, and just, you see them right through, and it's just a wonderful place, man. It's like, and so again, another undeniable magic about it.
Yeah. No, wicked.
Yeah.
Now, I'm reading your book at the moment,
Right.
one of your books, Harry's Kebabs.
Harry's Kebabs, man.
I'm really enjoying it. Tell us, we've not got long left, but tell us a bit about it in your own words.
Well, I want it to be fun, man. It's no Kafka, you know. Like, I'm not professing to be like it's. I want the book to be fun. I want my books to be fun and enjoyable to read. The same principles as doing a mix. Excuse me, I applied to writing, and that you've got to keep the dance floor, keep the reader's attention, keep the momentum. Right, and keep it bouncing along, so never peak, never, you know, like things just exactly the same as DJing. My friend Malcolm, rest his soul, down in London, running squat parties, fell and hit his head at Notting Hill Carnival, then bizarrely fell and hit his head at Notting Hill Carnival in exactly the same spot and exactly the same time the year after. Then he developed dementia. He was running squat parties, hardcore guy. Down in London 27 years or something, and he was running squat parties, chipped up face, all that, and he'd started losing his memory with a knock in the head. And I thought, right, Christ, to put him in an orange vest because he was wandering. He was in North Brent Cross, and he started walking to Scotland up there. It's like, you know, it was awful. So I was asking him, you know, do you remember when your wife had an affair with the guy for Say It School? Things like that, and that you would remember. You know, and he's like, nah, I don't know. And so I thought, right, I need to write this down. So I started writing all the stuff down for him. So everything in Harry's Kebabs happened. And then after 3 weeks, I did a word count. It was 19,000 words. My pal Carly was doing a thesis. We kept going, oh, it's 10,000 word thesis. And I've written 19,000 words in 3 weeks. How many words are in a book? You know, like, so I Googled it. It's 50,000's in a novel. And I thought, right, well, I've written 19,000 in 3 weeks. I'll write a book. It'll only take me 3 weeks. It'll only take me 3 months.
That's amazing.
4.5 years later, I've finished it. You know, like, you know, like it was. No, that was the thing behind it. And it wasn't really idea. My idea wasn't to do a book. It was a creative what's the word? Like, it was a test to myself. Like,
It was just you expressing yourself, really.
I just wanted to do something that was like creative with it, and because I knew I wasn't a writer. But then, you know, I published it. I remember pushing the button and it being published, thinking, oh no, like, what have I done? You know, like, but then I sold 134 copies overnight. And I started, the next day I was getting messages from everybody saying, oh, there's missing pages. Like, there's blank pages, there's spelling mistakes on page 30. You know, like, you've missed this, like, you've said this thing twice and that. And I was like, oh no, it's out there and it's rubbish. You know, like, so I had to reel it in and like change my manuscript and all that and get that fixed up, and just keep battering through it. But I was just wanting one of them to go, well done on writing a book, Russ. You know, like, your book's brilliant, well done. You know, like,
well, I'm enjoying it. I'm really enjoying it.
So that's a honed version of after about 6 weeks, and people going, there's a mistake here. Every time I pick it up, I see a mistake. I shouldn't say that either. But no,
that's amazing.
My book's meant to be fun. You know, it's not supposed to be. I mean, it is literature. I've been told. But it's a
amazing.
Fun read. That's a gift.
You've got another one out as well called
Takeaway. It just picks up. It's a sequel. Picks up exactly where that one finished now.
Where can people
get
that
it
are
on Amazon?
You can get it on Amazon, right?
A lot of people don't like Amazon, but Amazon, no Amazon, no book, man. They've been brilliant to me. I mean, they started out with they give me 70% of the cut. A publisher gives you 15 to 20, and you've got to do the same work. You know, like, it's very like the music industry. Like, throw money at anything that's working, and like, if it's not, you're left. So I did it all myself. I self-published everything myself. Brilliant. And I'm out selling the publishers because they send me their figures. So the publishers came at me to do the second novel and sent me their figures, and I was selling more.
Brilliant.
So I stuck with it. And then Amazon reduced the price of my book which I'd put at 10 quid. If I'd made it £9.99, I'd have got 70% of the cut. I made it 10 quid for 3 years. I was only getting 30-40% of the cut. They saw that and reduced the price to £4.99 without me saying, and still giving me the full cut. So I'm selling shitloads and getting the full cut for it.
Brilliant.
Because it's half price. So Amazon are great, man, for
Yeah,
that.
that's wicked.
I'm sure they're complete see you next Tuesdays and a lot of other things, but for books, which is how they started, selling second-hand books in a garage. And they've been amazing. So that's how you get it. It's on Amazon. I'm on Instagram and that. So
that's what I was going to ask you next, right? I'm sorry that we're going to have to go because you need to catch your train, because I feel like I could talk to you for another 2 hours
I'm
easily.
terrible, mate. I'm just sit and talk.
Maybe we'll do it again at another time if we're in the same area.
Absolutely.
But for anybody that's listening just now, where can they get you on Instagram and stuff like that? Because you've changed.
DJ Dribbler on Instagram, and also Harry's Kebabs. You'll find it that way. I'm not going too into it. It's a bit deep, there's underscores or whatever, but DJ Dribbler and Harry's Kebabs, the takeaway, that's how you'll find me on Instagram.
Wicked.
And you'll see there when you get on it, lots of famous people holding my book, or the DJs that come to Pikes, or the folk that bought my book. That's how I do it. I get them sending pictures. So
wicked.
You'll see Noel Gallagher, Goldie, Colleen Murphy. You see all the famous folk with my book.
Wicked, man.
It's been great crack, man.
That's wicked. Well, listen, thanks very much for coming on. I would definitely like to get you on again at some point. I feel like there's loads we could talk about. I've enjoyed speaking to you. So.
Paul over there as well, man.
Paul looking after us.
Yeah, this is a lovely studio. Really cool.
Thank you, mate. I really appreciate it.
Time to head down to London. Right, peace.
That was